I know, it's sad. Okay. I call the regular town council meeting of Tuesday, October 17th, 2023 to order. The first item on the agenda is roll call.
Dwayne, Roman,
Here.
Steve,
Here.
Alec,
Present.
Janet,
Here.
and Nicholas and Michael are excused absent.
Okay. Next thing is the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or changes that need to be made to the agenda as distributed? Okay, we move on to that. Is there anybody here for public comment? Okay. All right, citizens may make comments on items not scheduled on the agenda for Colorado Open Meetings Law. No council discussion or action will take place until a later date if necessary. You must sign in with the town clerk before speaking. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. So, Kathy, I think you're everyone.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, Kathy Hope, 18 Castle Road, Mount View, 30-year resident. I just wanted to thank the council for taking a stand on state proposition HH. And I would encourage you, since you have an email list, to send out a blast email to our constituents and let them know why, because it's really important that we keep our tax dollar here and not let the state decide how to spend what we vote on. Thank you. That's all.
There was on the agenda, but
Oh, sorry. I thought it was last time and you were just approving it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
that's okay.
Slap on the wrist.
And we had a letter from Andrew Burrell. So is there anybody else online for public comment? Okay. So we'll move on to the consent agenda, which includes approval of the October 3rd meeting minutes, resolution number 18, series 2023. Resolution of the town council of the town of Akron, town opposing proposition HH and undue limitation on municipal budgets and local control of property tax relief. And those are the 2 things on the consent agenda.
Move to approve consent agenda.
So, Leah?
Roman,
Yes.
Steve,
Yep.
Alec,
Yes.
Dwayne,
Yes.
Janet.
Yes. Okay, was there any other correspondence or nothing in the packet?
Just the updated work session.
Okay. Alright. Under business, the first thing is native landscapes, end of year noxious weeds report from Bradley Whittington. Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. Just want to say a special thanks to the board and to the town, and especially to the Parks Department here for continuing to go above and beyond with their vegetation management. Yeah, and that being said, the 2023 growing season, I completed 139 hours worth of noxious weed mitigation throughout the town road right-of-ways, open spaces, and the rec path area. That came out to be roughly about 7 acres treated. That's herbicide acres, not polygon acres. It was a successful year. There's a few species that are out there in the town that we're continuing to monitor, and a few different species that have come up in the last year or 2 that we're kind of seeing jump around. And again, we're aggressively monitoring those species and managing for them as we see them. As far as this season went, it was brought to my attention that some of my signage had been maybe not as adequately placed as it could have been, due to a few different reasons. But one solution, is moving forward for 2024. I've come up with, I'm sure you've seen all the road signs out there with work ahead signs. What I can do is I can get a weed spray and ahead sign, which I've seen other spray companies use in the past. Be a simple solution to put up on the side of the road, as I'm moving around. And so that folks can see that, and I'll continue with my small flagging as I do that, but the bigger section of the roads can be marked with that additional signage at the entrance onto each section that I'm working. Yeah, and with that, I would like to, open that up to any questions that you guys may have. No questions other than thanks. Yeah, thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And with that, we'll move on to the 2024 contract with Knockers Weeds Management and Native Landscapes. And that's with Leah.
So Brad just did his presentation. We have Ken O'Neill here tonight, Jenny Raples on the Zoom. They're both on our lead board. This is the annual contract that we forward every year. Our weeds management plan does require the town to apply the same or greater management to town lands as we enforce private lands as well. And there's a proposed motion on the memo. I just wanted to let you know as well that Brad is on our first department in the winter. Yep. Any questions for myself or Ken or Jen?
Is there I notice there's not a minimum number of hours to be worked, or is it input on this contract? Do you envision that being that concern?
I would not see that as a concern.
Probably plenty of work, right?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Cool.
Move to approve the 2024 service contract with Native Landscapes and to authorize the town manager to sign the contract subject to town attorney review and allow the town attorney to make non-material changes. Second.
Is there any other discussion? Leah.
Alex,
Yes.
Steve,
Yep.
Roman,
Yes.
Dwayne,
Yes.
Janet.
Yes. Next is the lot line adjustment and vacation application for lots 19, 20, 21, and 22 Timberland subdivision, County of Gunnison, State of Colorado, submitted by MSW 1995 Family Limited Partnership Number 1, represented by John P. Belkin, and this is also here.
Great. So John's with us here tonight. He's representing the applicant. They own 19 through 22 in Timberland subdivision. They are proposing to adjust the lot lines from 4 lots down to 3. Just some items to point out. Tyler with SGM. He provided a letter verifying the driveway feasibility of the newly created lots. All the utility providers approved the change. There's an additional agreement in the packet that would be the charter, and that is a potential condition for you to consider in the motion. And this also involves moving the utility and public easements to align with the new lot lines. And that is consistent with the entire subdivision of Timberland. The planning commission held a public hearing. There was no comment or written comment, and they conditionally approved the application. And condition number 2 was provided in tonight's plat map. So with that, I'll hand it over to John.
Thank you all, appreciate it. The family that owns these lots has been here, I think, like 30 years, and they've owned the lots that whole time, and it may be more than that. The reason why they're looking to do a boundary line adjustment is currently the driveway, if you're looking at the plat map now. The current driveway, I don't know if it's shown on there, but on 19. It crosses into 20. So the plan was to get the driveway just onto 19. In the process, they have no interest in selling or developing the lots. Family wants to be able to pass it down to their children because they're here quite often. So they wanted to get the driveway off lot 19. And in the process, get rid of one of the lots because there's so many trees on the lots. When they eventually do get developed by the kids, they don't want to cut all the trees down, so they're eliminating one of the lots to build on. And so that's what's driven this. We applied for this a couple of years ago, started the process. It took SGM over a year to get us the survey coming out of COVID, and then it took us quite a while to get Charter to sign off on the relocation of the access and utility easements. All the other utilities, Mount Crespi Water and Sanitation, the other utilities don't have any utilities in the easements, and they were okay with vacating them. But Charter, not Charter, Mount Crespi Water and Sanitation did not want to give them up, so they're just being moved on the boundary lines, the new boundary lines. Charter actually has facilities that run through, I think it's slot 21. So we're gonna give them an easement to let those stay in the middle of the lot. If the lot ever has to be developed, then by operation of the agreement, they get vacated. If the easement gets vacated, we can tear the lines out and the new lines, to the extent that they put it in. They don't even know if they use them. They're probably old cable lines. They'll go in the easement in between the two of the lots, so. Should be pretty simple, but it came to, see if you have any questions or.
How does this affect what can be built and what side can be built on the lots?
So the lots now and the future platted lots would be subject to the 25% of their total lot area for their gross residential floor area. Since the lot sizes are increasing, that's gonna go up. But they wouldn't be hitting that 8,500 cap that. Is in there.
Any other questions?
Any other unforeseen issues with this as far as somebody in the neighbors, what they might have been expecting to see in this area versus what may be seen in this area?
We haven't received any public comment, so I know John actually went above with his noticing. The code requires 200-foot noticing radius, and he set them to 500, I believe.
500, yeah. Just,
Um,
it seems like the subdivision, you would know better than I suspect, doesn't really operate. There's a lot of second homeowners there. And the subdivision is fairly old, goes back quite a ways. So I just thought to send notice further to more neighbors, especially because the homes are pretty spread out. So that people would know. Obviously, one of it, it's not obvious, you can see from the plat. One side is the ski area, so it's the Forest Service. That's another reason why vacating the internal easements made sense, because on one side is a private easement to get to these lots. And on the other side is the ski area, and none of the utilities had utilities in the easements, because it's basically a bridge to nowhere because the ski area is behind it. So, yeah, I don't know, there's not a lot of smoke and mirrors on this one, it's just an effort to reduce.
I move to approve a lot line adjustment vacation for lots 19, 20, 21, and 22. Timberline subdivision is submitted MSW 1995 Family Limited Partnership number 1. Based on compliance with the criteria and necessary findings of fact required by section 18-331, subsection E of the town code provided today, with the following condition. Communications facilities easement between MSW 1995 Limited Partnership 31. What's that?
number one.
Yeah, sorry, typo on the second one. Limited partnership number one, LP and Spectrum Pacific West LLC shall be executed and reported contemporaneously with the line investment indication plat and a recorded copy provided to town staff.
Do we know?
Yeah.
Do we know which one of those is correct? Partnership number one or partnership 31?
What?
Number one.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be right on the plat.
Is there any other discussion? Leah?
Wayne,
Yes.
Roman,
Yes.
Steve.
Yep.
Alex,
Yes.
Jan.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
share what you do.
Okay, next is the Region 10 presentation on broadband fiber and carrier and neutral location to serve Mount Crescent View. Corey?
Yes. Slide. That should be a car stack, right?
Zip drive. I can go with no.
Hopefully there's like an aerial view of like
No.
where all these places were gonna be. I can save it in step 1, step 10. Save it in here, then plus this. You know, anything else? So Carlos, they have just started.
You can send it to you.
I have it. You just sent it to them.
Wherever we start. I'm online.
You guys are 10 full.
This week. Where did you do this?
It's a dead spot at like 3 a.m. every night. So that's
We have it.
No, it's software. But he has on the ground. And he did like nature that. And then it was crazy now. It's no coverage. It's even, but not lot, but he still is.
Okay.
That's
You ready?
So
That's what's in
that's.
Hello. I'm Corey Brindle with Region 10. I'm the regional broadband director. I live here in CB South and have developed fiber and infrastructure around the area for many years. Can you hear me okay? Okay, cool. Could you advance one slide? Thanks. So I just wanted to do a quick refresh on Region 10 is one of the DOLA regions around the state. We are comprised of 6 counties and 18 communities, basically in the yellow area with the black line around it. Region 10 is involved in a host of different community services, and one of the services on the green on the lower right is broadband service. So we operate 600 miles of fiber throughout the western part of the state, 12 carrier neutral locations, and we have some staff and a number of contracts. So just to orient you, could you advance one? Cool. So one of our projects is the Western Slope has a lack of challenges in reliability, capacity of the speeds and the services that we can get out here. And obviously our costs are elevated too, because we're on the far side of the state. We've got about a $6.5 million project that Region 10 has undertaken to expand our network and bring better sources of internet from Denver, from Salt Lake City, and from Albuquerque into the 6-county region. And that will benefit all of our communities, and including Gunnison County. We basically, in that grant, that cycle, we've got fiber acquisition, pieces of fiber from different owners. We've got equipment that's going on that fiber, and we've got routing equipment as well, optical and routing equipment. And a lot of that is done through partnerships. We work outside of our region as well as within our region, but the whole goal is to serve the home team. So legit, yes, one. This map shows a little bit of the infrastructure that we're developing both within Region 10 as well as around the state.
Within Region 10, that black box shows the 12 carrier neutral locations or equipment rooms that we have throughout the 6 counties. There's currently one in Gunnison, and there's also a carrier neutral location or equipment room in Crested View. And we'd like to develop one here in Mount Crested View and complete the fiber and the conduit that was installed some years ago. In addition to that, you'll see there's a green line along I-70 horizontally that comes from Denver to Grand Junction. We're in the process of leasing fiber and installing equipment there, as well as vertically on the left side from Grand Junction all the way down to Durango and Cortez. That's fiber that we currently have leased throughout the territory, as well as we're adding that down to Durango. So that's kind of the big picture and shows a little bit of how we fit into the larger puzzle. So now I'm going to drill down a little bit more into the local stuff. The first thing, this is all the carrier neutral locations with all the partners throughout the state. So there's a total of about 45 of these equipment rooms. And these are basically municipalities, counties, public entities working with the regions, whether it's the Northwest COG, Region 10, or Region 9 down in Durango, to improve broadband service by building fiber between towns and putting these equipment locations in, that can move forward with money. This kind of goes to a little bit of the reliability. We know that there's mudslides. We know that there's construction events. We know that there's equipment failures. In the Southwest, we've got quite a risk of forest fire, and that it actually came up here recently. And then in the Southeast, we have, the risk of going through cables with excavators, and basically as the ranchers put their fences back up in the spring, they often find fiber cable lying right away along the highway. So that's the reason for redundancy and trying to make sure we've got multiple routes out to the major cities, which are our sources of internet. So the first thing we had to do there is increase the capacity. And rather than buying more and more strands of fiber and buying more and more cables, we use equipment that basically a fancy prism on the end, very expensive prisms, and we use colors of light along the cable. So we only use 2 or 4 strands of fiber. So even though that cable's got all these little hairs in it, we put prisms on the end and we bring colors of light through it. And that's how we scale or increase the capacity of the service coming to the area. So, yeah. So our goal at the end of the day is to not just connect to the next fish upstream, but to actually connect to the sources of internet connectivity. And that primarily comes down to what they call tier 1 internet service providers. These are the large national operators where their networks exist primarily in the NFL states. Lumen, CenturyLink Legacy, Zayo, AT&T, Verizon, connecting our rural communities, very little latency and high capacity directly to those large networks is basically the network we're building. There's a slide that's not here. It also talks about content providers. Once we get into Denver, Salt Lake, and Albuquerque, we actually connect directly to Microsoft, Netflix, Amazon, Facebook, all the major content providers as well. So we're trying to increase capacity and improve performance of the networks in rural areas. So actually that slide was still in it. That was the earlier version. So this talks about the big 6. When you use your laptop and use your mobile device, about 50 to 60% of that traffic is really going to these 5 companies. The software, the services, all the properties that live within these 6 companies are what you're using. The remaining 40-45% is thousands of locations on the internet. But when you look at the cloud providers, what is the cloud? It's your software application that you're using on your phone, and your data really sits in these content providers. So what do we want to build? And what are we basing this on? It's called a carrier neutral location. The important word there is neutral, and that it's municipally owned. It's basically an equipment room. It's an equipment room where we have middle mile fiber between towns. It's terminated in racks on the left. This is a bird's eye view of basically what looks like a cell site. This could be a remodel in a building, or it could be a drop-in facility. But on the left, we have racks for equipment for middle mile. That's basically connecting between towns, like between Gunnison and Crested View, or Crested View and Mount Crested View. This is all the backhaul infrastructure. And on the right, we have equipment rack that are leased to last mile providers, to internet service providers in your area. And that could be a wireless, fixed wireless provider. That could be a fiber to the home provider. That could be a mobile cellular carrier. But we're basically providing the backhaul to get to this location, and then co-location or rental space within it. We've got dual air conditioners. We've got a key card access door lock. We've got an IP camera. We put a generator outside, and redundant power, but that equipment room is kind of key, because it means any ISP that comes to the town and says, I want to participate and put a wireless overlay. I want to run fiber to your homes. I want to run additional small cell sites throughout the area. This provides a location for them to put that equipment, and it provides a location where they can take what they call backhaul, or connection to the source of the internet service. And those are two significant barriers of entry and attracted investment to an area that's not, the market's not carrying that investment naturally. So this is a publicly owned facility. It fosters competition, that's the big one. It reduces the barrier of entry and it attracts investment. And again, we're really focused on that reliability, capacity, and cost reduction. So getting into the local stuff, what is the existing infrastructure? So I've had a little bit of a hand in this over time before my tenure at Region 10, just because I've been around here a while. When they did the corridor project between Crested Butte and Mount Crested Butte, they were, the county and GCPA were looking to underground power lines, so they weren't in the view corridor along Gothic Road. That was going to put power lines underground, and I called Half Channel and I said, if you open that trench, let's not do that and close it without putting conduit and cable in. So eventually we can get fiber into Mount Crested Butte. And they allowed us to go into the trench. They allowed the cable TV company to go to the trench. And on the other side of the road, CenturyLink has their own infrastructure on that side, or West at the time, now CenturyLink, not Lumen. So the county owns a conduit that goes from basically the gas cafe right behind it, all the way up to across from the sewer plant. I donated personally, or the small outfit that I own, donated the cable to go into that, and the county now owns that. So I didn't want that opportunity to be passed up. Additionally, there's some conduit that's been installed from the base area as you've done sidewalk projects back towards Prospect. So section by section by section, the town managers have included that orange tube that you see in the sidewalk projects. So that's basically what we have today. There is a carrier neutral location in Crested Butte, although it's not connected from Crested Butte to the gas cafe. So there's a short section there that would be the conduit and cable. Okay, advance one more. And this is kind of like where we'd like to go. So we'd like to take the carrier neutral location, the equipment room in the Marshalls building downtown, connect it to that conduit that starts right in front of the gas cafe, and the new housing development there. Complete that cable from the section in front of the sewer plant all the way up to the larger Mountaineer Square to the transit center. From the transit center, continue that conduit and pull a cable through it all the way back along Gothic Road up here to the water treatment plant or the town hall, your termination location. And that way we've got backhaul fiber all the way through. We have a carrier neutral location in Crested Butte. We have a carrier neutral location in Mount Crested Butte. The internet service providers can place their equipment in there. They can use the backhaul services that we can bring to there. It basically facilitates the common infrastructure where the government should be involved. Now, on the last mile piece, the piece that the internet service providers would either provide to the home wirelessly, build fiber to the home from the CNL out to their homes, that type of stuff, we don't get involved in that. We let the market play that out. Those guys compete, invest, fight all the things they do, lower costs and increase service levels ideally. But through several of these discussions with the towns, the direction that I've been given is to focus on the common core infrastructure, and that's the point-to-point conduit and cable between the towns and the carrier neutral locations in those communities. So anyways, glad to field any questions, but that's kind of the basis of the concept. Been working with Carlos and Jeff to come up with the specifics of the project and what it might look like locally to remodel a portion of the transit center, about a 10 by 15 room in there, and then to install the conduit and cable between the CNLs. So this gives you a little more of the regional look forward in a futures route. You know, if money was no object, I'd love to pull a cable over Keller Pass and get into the existing fiber on the other side. Elevate, the fiber provider over there is open to working with us. We cooperate with them on a number of projects today. So that would give us a western route towards Paonia. And once you get into Paonia, Region 10 has a carrier neutral location in Paonia, Hotchkiss, Delta, Montrose, and then you're onto the backbone. There is a CenturyLink fiber that went over Cottonwood Pass, and that was actually quite helpful for our E911 system. It does require that any ISP, who wants to buy that service from the incumbent telephone company, will buy a route, out through Montrose, and then optionally buy a route over, Cottonwood Pass and out. So you're basically doubling your cost in that case. Here, I thought, if we could, we'd like to go east and west along Highway 50, more or less, and then, possibly build that piece over Kettler. That's all dreaming, if money rains from the sky. But that's kind of the direction I'd like to go. And then the last slide is just a quick overview of what the incumbent telephone company and cable company have in here today. The telephone company is in the red lines roughly. They bring service in from Montrose. It actually wraps down just north of Lake City through Cimarron, comes up to Gunnison along the lake. It doesn't follow Highway 50 the whole way. And then once you go from Gunnison north, you have a blue line between Gunnison and Mount Crescent View. That's infrastructure the Cable TV company owns. And then there is some new fiber that was installed by the telephone company over Cottonwood Pass. We've requested access to the fiber there a couple times and been told in writing that that's not available to us, that we just find that services. But anyway, it's just an overview of what's there. So glad to take any questions and well, hopefully this is helpful to you guys.
Have you and or town staff identified multiple CNL locations up here besides transit center?
Yeah, I've gone through a handful of them over the years. When I came into Region 10, the initial design was next to the Rosca line. And it's really difficult. You're asking the last mile internet service providers to go through a lot of underground infrastructure to build anything new there, because the telephone company is so entrenched in that cabinet right in front of there. So then I looked at, could we do a deal and get it into 2 parking spaces in the Lodge Mountaineers Square garage? When we designed and estimated and did the entire LMS garage option, that didn't really come through. So now with current staff, we went out and looked at a couple different sites, and we thought that actually we talked to a private building as well at one point that didn't come through. And we looked at the space in the transit center as again being centrally located in LMS along Gothic Road, so there's not a lot of construction to get to it, and a relatively easy wall to put vaults outside, just get the ISPs to HOAs and back onto Gothic Road, that kind of thing. So, we could look at additional sites for sure. Take a look at the town hall here. There's a possibility as well. But at the end of the day, we thought the proposal would best at the moment we best with the transit center. Looks like there's some available space there, and it wouldn't really need a very big footprint. Maybe a wall or two at the most. In best case, just remodel some of this thing space in.
We have building design budget.
My question, goes along the line of, what is your ask of the town? What can you do to facilitate this whole process, if any?
Yeah, the first thing is staff. So this is labor intensive, we're building infrastructure, so we need to be able to have Jeff and Carlos, spend time on this and write an RFP, go out and evaluate those RFPs, and hire the construction firms to finish the conduit and remodel the CNL space.
So that's something you say staff time, and then Carlos correct me if, I'm out in the field here, but essentially, when you say staff time, you would come in, sit down with staff and work with staff to get this done, and is that an ask that we can deliver?
Well, that's what we've been doing up to this point, the last 6 months, 8 months.
Yeah, as Region 10, we can't do it for you because of procurement rules and things like money. But we can work with the staff and help you understand the designs, understand what goes in an RFP, help you evaluate the RFPs, and then watch over the construction as it unfolds.
So you operate like a consultant to our staff?
Yeah,
And
and
this
in
is
some ways, even an extension of staff in some ways as well. I wouldn't, they're not consulting to us as in we're paying them. They represent us. So in that way, I would consider more an extension of staff than a consultant. So to answer your question, yes, that's availability we do have, and we have been and will continue to utilize the services provided by Region 10 and Corey. To hopefully find the best solution to get broadband in Mount Sabine.
We're actually
That's
owned and
one-
managed by, we're one of the entities that owns and it's our nonprofit, so we're not bidding you for services.
right, so, you know, part of the ask is, you know, staff time, what is the financial commitment required to get this done?
Absolutely, absolutely. So in order to build the conduit and the fiber, remodel the room for the CNL, the equipment room, that requires matching funds. And those matching funds would go against DOLA grant. But when I have this conversation with most communities, they don't have a DOLA grant assigned for broadband. Fortunately, Gunnison County already has an allocation of money from DOLA. So as we do an RFP and assess what those costs are, any matching funds towards that infrastructure bill would have to come from the local community. Now, there's a couple different potential sources. The town isn't the only source. But the first thing is to do the RFP and come up with what are the bids, what is the real cost of the cable. And then from there, develop the matching funds. We already have open and available DOLA grants. Best case scenario, the work, that side of the work's already done. So it's basically 50 cents on the dollar. So it's $1 to $1 match. So let's say the project costs, I don't know, $100. We would have to develop $50 in matching. Add your decimal points, 0 cents. But let's say it's I don't know, let's say it's a $400,000 project or $300,000 project. Half of that would be funded by DOLA, and half would be developed through match. I don't have any guidance on actual project cost at this point. I know order of magnitude, we're not talking about multiple millions or anything like that. We're not talking about 100 grand. We're somewhere in that $200,000 to $500,000 range, depending on what bids come back as. So we'd have to develop material match. There's no doubt about that. But once we get those RFPs back, then I think we can sit down and talk about what the match is and what are potential sources to create that match.
And how far away are the requests for proposals?
We've exchanged templates that I've used in other communities, and basically we draft the RFP.
Jeff's taking the lead on it,
Okay,
in conjunction with Corey and I. But Jeff's a little busy, right? Right at the moment.
so everything.
But yes, they're all,
Is being done.
yes,
Once they've developed a draft RFP, I'll review that to make sure it's squares with what we do. And then we'll present that either to you or to the public, just to get responses and see what the space is.
And it's scientific wild ass guess on, when we might actually have something complete.
So that's the slide we're missing in here. I added
Of course,
I added a timeline, and what we wanted to do is get the RFP out and kind of go through that process between now and the first of the year. There it is, and then, oh, you got it, okay, cool. Between now and the first of the year, and then once we hit the first of the year, kind of be able to have developed matching funds and assign that contract to do the construction once the snow cover. So there's two phases. The indoor work can be done during the winter. If we're going to remodel a space in the transit center or an indoor space, that can be done year round. There's lots of labor and availability. Once the snow cover, melts and recedes, then we can do the outdoor construction and get the conduits and cables placed. So that I would say somewhere in the first, starting maybe in late January, if we get contracts through at that point for the interior work, and then starting probably in April or early May, depending on your higher altitude environment itself.
so 2025, 2026 is a reasonable expectation for
We would have construction
fiber optics.
completed. We would have the route that I showed in that earlier slide completed in 2024. And then from there.
Again, it's the individual ISPs, the service providers that have to take it from this, neutral place to everybody's house.
And what our experience has been in so many of these sites is as soon as we commit this project, and actually get the RFP responses out and.
The
you know,
words
stop.
of usual right there.
As soon as we commit that project to a construction firm, these ISPs go crazy. They want to serve the uncertain, any underserved areas. So we've already had knocks on the door here to go out and start that process. But making sure at least the equipment rooms, the cabling between the town is in place, that's the first step. Because that becomes neutral and open and available to any ISP, not just to like a single one. We don't want to just replace one monopoly with another. So, we're waiting for a while.
Thank you.
With being conscious of not wanting to micromanage staff, I'd be curious where something like this sits on our discussion before of prioritizing staff bandwidth and what we're trying to take on, and where I think we're still trying to come around to that conversation, but I'd be curious how much time this takes and where it sits in the priority list, but that's for a later time, not necessarily trying to deal with it.
Well, it's hard. I mean, we put a lot of time into it these last few months to get us to where we are right now. So it's hard to say, I mean, it's on the priority list. We're dedicating time to it as time allows. I mean, the benefit. And I think the reason that we're able to do that is because we have the benefit of Region 10 and Corey. You know, if we didn't, if it was just dedicated staff, it would be much. Well, with just the expertise that Corey brings is, you know, indispensable. We don't have that. And so having Region 10 allows us to make it a priority, because otherwise, if it was just staff led, it would not. Yeah,
And then, Corey, with my experience with the DDA, it seems like this initiative is a 2-step forward, 1 step back thing. And then we had the building design for RC1 with the budget and everything, and then that ended up not happening. And then we talked about the Life 900 Square parking spaces. And then there was talk of maybe CBMR putting some money towards the middle mile project because they didn't have enough literal bandwidth, and maybe the hospital. And then CBMR said, well, we have plenty of bandwidth, we don't need to put money towards this. So it sounds like it's more than just, oh, we need a spot for this.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, it's an evolving conversation. So CBMR pre-Vail Resorts was in one position where they wanted to participate. And post-Vail Resorts, they've been in a position to support, but they use CenturyLink connectivity centrally for all their locations. So they've been very active in supporting our grant requests and generally want to be good partners. They always have been. But they're just in a different position because they've got a central telecom department or outfit that's managing all their such properties. Yeah, it's been, I've done restarts with this several times through several different staff generations. We've looked at several different iterations of the project. At this point, I would recommend that you make a decision to move forward, at least get the conduit in place, at least get the fiber pulled. And if we can use this winter to get a construction project going to build the equipment room to CNL, I mean, that's ideal. If there's resistance to the location, let's pick a different location. But we're going to see a lot of last mile funding come into the state over the next year. One of those grant cycles just capital projects fund at our broadband office. That just went through and closed. We have another larger one, $350 million coming into the state, almost $1 billion for last mile infrastructure that these last mile ISPs will be able to use. Being prepared for those is kind of what I'm trying to do. And that's really the driving force behind that entire network around the state. Is we've got to build a middle mile feeds, otherwise you've got no reservoir and no mains to feed the distribution network.
And Carlos, and is this an accurate statement that there's 2 parts where you move forward with the CNL, if we find a place and funding and all that, and then the cable is incremental as we make improvements to the road and do different projects rather than we're putting all this cable. Is that accurate at all?
For the middle mile piece to go from the sewer plant up to LMS, I would do that in 1 fell swoop. I think in 2 months, next summer, you can have that completed. As far as cable going from the CNLs out to homes and businesses, that'll be incremental based on what the ISPs invest in. But getting the core infrastructure in, that's a single push.
Okay, then I was misunderstood.
Now, you have made incremental investments in conduit as the road from LMS back to here has been improved, actually all the way back to Prospect and has been improved. But at this point, I would just pull a cable through what you've got and finish what conduit's not there. Let's get that core infrastructure, Crested Butte to Mount Crested Butte in place. And then the rest of how you manage the request for the ISPs, that's gonna be depending on the ISP and the proposal, what they want to do with that.
I was just thinking about it through the context of, oh, we're gonna replace that sidewalk in 3 years anyway, so why are we doing this now?
Miss Stando for the need applications for the funding, that's fine, that would be the, we doing it backwards.
No, I'm just talking about the other, but thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that sidewalk replacement was discussed earlier, and I think that'd be a great opportunity if you're doing it today.
Where are we on doing the part for the Marshall's office for the gas cafe?
So that is part of what has to be estimated, and will require a partnership with Crested Butte. So we'll need to make that a part of this project, be able to pull permits for that. When that sidewalk went in, there's six electrical conduits under it. And I walked up to Bob Gilly at the time and said, Bob, I will give you, like this, hand you, step away, a trailer full of conduit, and we'll talk about it later. I was literally trying to gift it to him, so we didn't close that sidewalk without the conduit. He said, son, you're $80 short. It's an opportunity, it's an open trench. So anyways, that doesn't exist. We'll actually have to drill that and forward that up to the gas company.
So that's gonna take some time.
It's part of the same project. It's not a great distance, and there have been some construction in Crested Butte. It is along the highway, which is disturbed right away, so it's not hard pan rock below. But yeah, it's a piece of the project that has to be connected here.
And the legwork with LMS has been done.
Well, you're a tenant in LMS. Now, if we want to move the project forward, the tenant town would have to talk to the different jurisdictions within that building to.
The chambers.
Including the chamber, but no, those discussions have not happened yet.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Cory? Do you need anything from us to have those conversations with Roger Mountain School?
I don't think so.
Cool.
If that's where we think is location worth exploring. If you don't, then I would see there's no need to have those conversations, but.
Or you could look at it like, if you had those conversations, you would know whether or not it was the place to put it, based on those conversations.
Well,
Just.
yeah, no, I mean, it's on the list to do with the chamber and with TCCA and LMS, just haven't had a meeting.
The nice thing about LMS is it's central and it's located right on Gothic Road. So it's a short drill to get into the building. And then it has that ceiling in the garage. That should you get permission from the controlling entities, you could get to each of the walls to get out, each direction. So, yeah, it's a stable, known environment. It's a garage with a concrete wall around it. So it's not. Anyways, there's a number of advantages there. The Rasta lot, my biggest concern was, you're spending a lot of money to build a building, to a lot of existing space available. Just all the challenges. The other issue with the Rasta lot is all that underground infrastructure is really difficult to ask a new ISP to come in and navigate through the costs of them, where you want to reduce costs.
So essentially, my understanding of the process is, if it went in the Logic Mountaineer Square, we would have to purchase 2 parking spots from them.
Yeah, we've moved beyond that proposal to the potential using some space in the transit center.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, so that, we reviewed that and we're going to propose that 2 years ago. But it didn't, for a number of reasons, it didn't move forward. Right now, what we're looking at is just using some of the space that's currently storage space primarily in the transit center. and using that backspace,
Where
basically.
my skis are,
We've
or
got-
should be.
We've had skis stored up all over everything here.
Okay.
So anyways,
Thank you, Cory.
Hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you, yeah, good update,
thanks guys.
yeah, I want five.
There's these go.
Wherever. Okay, here's the admission tax grant report on the Mountain Project. Yes.
Hello, everyone. So Mount Melanin project was awarded $10,000 by the Mountain Custer Town Council, April 18th. For their Juneteenth event, and the funds were to be dispersed as well as you can see on the report. But as some planning went underway, they realized as an organization, they would not need the $2,000 for permits, fees and insurance. So we had a discussion with them and we revised the award at that point to $7,521. And you can see in the report, the breakdown there of how that all transpired, but essentially, we approved moving $790.23 from the digital and print marketing category to the travel expenses category. And the ROI is not listed in the report, but I had a conversation with Willis, and I included it in my report, was just around 125, and as you recall, that was not the purpose necessarily for this grant specifically, so they did not utilize digital marketing, so we don't have tracking for that, but moving forward, I'm sure we will figure that out with the organization. We actually have a meeting scheduled with them for next week to just kind of review the event as a whole and discuss with them their plans for the next year, which they have. And so, you know, this first event up at the mountain was really well received. And outcome was positive. There's obviously a few things to work on, as there always is with first events, you know, and we worked through that with applicants. And staff was really happy with everything, you know, we feel like there's some tweaks and adjustments, but that's just kind of part of growing and doing different events here. And yeah, so I don't have any further questions for that. I think Chloe is here, and Monica, if you guys have any questions for them, or I can try and answer them.
I just more, appreciate your participation in this, and, I think with certain events, we're starting to see the sort of rough takeoff, with then feedback with you, and then the next go around of polishing things up and having sort of a learning curve with some of these, so it wouldn't have happened with just this, so thank you.
One of the, stated, I don't know if it was a benefit or, you know, one of the logics that was presented to us, was the influencers that would, come, you know, would write articles about their experience here, and that would be, good for us. And I'm curious, you know, how many articles were written and, you know, what kind of result we would get, you know, in that domain.
I don't know that articles were mentioned, more or less sharing, social.
Well, it was my understanding that it was something along the lines of rating the town as far as, inclusive and or, you know, like a friendly environment.
Sure.
And, you know, so however that, you know, was communicated, what do we have to indicate that anything at all happened in that thing?
Yeah, so part of an event like this and having influencers at any event, right, is posting to their social media stories. And yeah, and which definitely happened. I followed some of the speakers that were here, definitely saw some of that. Melanie has their own channel.
and they pushed all of the events out, very well throughout. So it's one of those things where something like that doesn't just happen overnight, right? It's an accumulation of time and time spent and having artists and groups like this and, the community feeling that way. So it's not something that's just like an overnight,
Well, that, if I implied that, I was looking for,
Oh, no,
immediate results, I apologize, but I was most concerned about it is that, from, my engagement in the process of, allowing, those monies to be granted, it's just my understanding that there would be, some kind of metric that we could look at that said, yeah, well, we were, down here, but now we're up here.
yeah, I think a few things. So, looking at it as a little bit more starting off as a grassroots organization as a sense, a lot of it is organic, so they're not paying for a lot of that. And I think a piece of it, correct me if I'm wrong, but was that, next year, they really plan a little bit more in advance, and in that, they can create more, digital, like advertising efforts that we might be able to track a few more metrics with, certainly. But I think this year it was just the changing of venue and bringing it up here and exploring Mount Western in general. I was happy with the organic social media that I saw for the event. I thought they did a nice job of that. But definitely something we will be looking at for sure.
Thank you.
Yes, please go ahead.
So we have a long-term future goal with a bunch of other grassroots organizations. That do those things, like that do make metrics, that we can like receive and all of that, but. I think that Juneteenth is a brand new federal holiday. We're in our second year of it, and Colorado has actually become rather progressive and competitive with it. All of the influencers are spread really thin, and being asked to show up for various events all over the state. So we weren't able to like culminate that much energy into those pre-existing like metric
So
making
you're
things.
planning to accelerate that effort in the future.
Absolutely. The more we host these events and they become something that people yearn to want to come see and be a part of, the easier it will be for us to book these influencers and market Mount Crestview.
And just to add to that too, I think the sentiment from us reaching out to influencers to come to Crescent View, a lot of them were like, oh, wow, we didn't know Crescent View would host events like this too. So being a very organic grassroots event this year as our first time running some of these events, then I think it was a good start, right?
More questions?
I just want to be clear, we just wrote in the check for the 7,900.
Correct, yeah, we didn't have to ask for money back.
Okay,
Yeah, it was done ahead of time, which was great.
yeah, okay. Was there anything else from anybody on that project?
Just ready to have it up there.
Okay, next is the admissions tax grant report on Jinka.
Yes, okay, so, Tin Cup Ice Cream and Desserts was awarded $6,000 by the Mount Crescent View Town Council on October 18, 2022. For the purpose of marketing their new location in the base area for the 2022-23 winter season. So, you can see how funds were dispersed. Travel Crescent View was retained to utilize those funds and help them with their marketing efforts. So the report was not submitted within the 90 days. The report date, though, it is, and I did have a conversation with Matt, he's here on that, but looking at all of their marketing materials and what they included in the report, I felt like they did meet and exceed their goals for their marketing campaign, which was great. So you can kind of see what was guaranteed by views and impressions.
reels, all of those things. So again, this is a marketing effort that is not necessarily conversion data, right? It's more based on impressions and clicks because we're not like really selling tickets and things like that. But ROI generation and things like that can be tracked, and you can see that underneath the budget and financial information. So, you know, we did feel like they met all of the goals of the grant, and based on our updated guidelines for the admissions tax grant, they would qualify to apply for the winter 2024-25 admissions tax grant season. So we did that year.
This is that one gimme we get with the submission kind of thing.
I didn't do that. It could be something where, because it was just a winter to winter and we've already passed the cycle. So there was really no opportunity, and they did not inquire to apply for this cycle. So, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
One question on the budget financials. Gross ROI generated by marketing 319, 241, net ROI generated by marketing 632. Did you look at where those numbers came from and where the difference is between what the difference are between those and that? I don't know if that's a math question.
It may be, and I'm getting through peak of.
Sure. Yeah, so he's looking at this, it was included in my report too, that your gross is 319 into the town. And what was your question?
Well,
Sorry.
my assumption is simply that we're just taking that ad campaign and looking at the total revenue generated in that time period that it's granted for.
Yeah.
Versus looking at conversions from that, as you touched on, right?
Yeah, it was an overall.
It's less traffic.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right, okay, cool. So that was just a good way to show us the mileage overall.
Yeah.
But it is kind of hard when you get into the specifics of
yeah,
how
it
much
is.
revenue is created by the SMK because it's a very broad campaign and you're not serving people when they come in the door.
Right,
So-
yeah, just like any other restaurant or.
And I would say we didn't have because of when we opened and then when the tax grant kicked in, we didn't have much of a year over year comparison. We just had basically, well, we technically didn't have any year over year as far as these figures do include, because we didn't close very much in the off season in April and May, and so there was, these figures go all the way through the end of June. And so we do have a little bit crossover from the prior year.
But thank you. I hope we see your cookies at Christmas party.
You will. It's already on our calendar.
Fantastic.
Great. Any other questions for? Okay.
All right.
So move on to the admissions tax grant 2024 budget review.
Okay, so, I sent over an email on Monday. Yesterday was Monday, right? Yes, yeah. That the chamber, would be withdrawing their request for their Mardi Gras event, so it does just change the numbers here ever so slightly, so I'll get into that, but, this is just kind of an overall broad discussion about budget in general, and I know Carl kind of touched on it. But really my hope is to get to a place that town council, you guys are comfortable with, funding an amount. And, that we try and really kind of stick to those goals. So. I think a few things, right, have started to happen, which is really great. We're seeing this increase in events. We're seeing the base area become more busy. We're seeing more community partners seeing this as a space to bring things in, and that was the purpose. That's what we wanted to see. You know, previous to this, we can look at page 3 of the admissions tax grant, but really right up until 2019. We were, you know, between 2015 and 2019, we were anywhere from 561 to 613 for funding. So I looked at that And then I also looked at what we've been providing for grants, which is on page 2, what we're kind of looking at for this year. So I kind of wanted to get to a really comfortable place, and I kind of landed at that 575 point, but it's going to take some extra work on our end. So, you know, does that look like categories? Because right now we're not really hitting those goals of the category percentages. Or does it look like we assess those needs as it comes? So that is a piece of, you know, page 2 that I did want to discuss, and you can see those numbers essentially in the remaining balance. One thing that I think is great, right, is that our biggest category is this community growth and fundraising. And I think that town council and staff and community really resonates with the groups that are coming in that really benefit nonprofits that might not have as much money to grow something, but they do, and it accounts for a huge fundraiser for their group. So I just want to be mindful that, you know, it's something that's the one category that we're pretty well over. Same thing with destination events, and we're a little bit low on the traditional marketing and spending breakdown. It's one of those things where we've changed over the years, right? We've decreased that category specifically just based on what town council needs and wants have been. But you know, if you do approve moving forward for a total of 575, I'd love to try and really keep it a little bit tighter to that, which just means being a little bit more critical when we're going through this process.
When you say that, then, you know, one of the things that we talked about when we did the winter ones was whether or not, there should be a destination or a signature. I mean, would you take that into account when you're doing the numbers, if we all kind of felt like it really was the signature of that?
Yeah, I think, you know, that's going to be up to council. I'm happy to adjust the numbers, you know, however you all see fit. And we're not too far off, honestly, on the signature events right now. Just
But
at,
if you move Worcester into that, then would be way off.
well, if not, if we're increasing our budget. So this was based on, you know, 289,000. So if the budget increases, we probably maybe would be there, maybe not.
Reflecting on the conversation before and like trying to sort of hone the philosophy behind trying to put a cap on something. Well, first of all, I'd really appreciate input from these people who aren't here. So maybe this would be more of a discussion with guidance and kind of tweak it at the end, but having a cap of whatever that is, I think forces the hand of some applicants of, okay, do I really believe in this event? Does it have legs? If I have to put in more funding for my organization, does that move the needle on the success, whether I think this is a valuable thing to have? I mean, we're largely, if you look at the columns, we're largely just giving away what is there and or what has been asked for. And to speak specifically to the 10% conversation and all of that, putting a cap on this creates another percentage or a limit, with the focus being on maybe some other creative things that can happen, rather than, well, we have this money and we have no idea how much people are gonna ask for. So I'm all in favor of a cap, and maybe it's tweaking some of the requirements of, you know, you need to put an X amount of percent of the overall program budget, or if it falls above or below a certain percentage of your overall budget, that affects your score. You know, if a company or group has a $2 million budget and they're asking us for, you know, not a lot of money, how does that affect the decision-making process? Like, you probably would have pulled this off anyway without our help, and just because the money is there and can go to good things, does that necessarily mean that you know, we shouldn't try to curb that just a little bit?
And I'd be happy, to put together a work session, so I mean, I think that those are great conversations to have. We could add a rubric that would include something like that, so it would be a scoring system, right, if they score higher or lower, but then that means that we have to really look at those rubric scores. You know, right now, just for the purpose of this meeting and because we're so close with the budget, I am just looking at if we're comfortable with that 575, if we think that we can stick to that. And then I'm happy to have a work session meeting with everybody, if we can dial down what those percentages are. We can look at, like you said, Roman, adding a rubric, we can, you know, just come up with things, yeah, both of those things could be important, and we revise those. Yeah.
So just so I know that, you know, like I'm thinking about this correctly. You would like us to establish a $575,000 cap on, you know, what we will grant.
Correct, yeah,
And so, but the request that we have had are for significantly less than that, so why would we put out that we want to have $575,000 available when
I see what you're saying, so, you know, we actually will funded $608,918 for this year. Really, the only years that we have not been close to that was 2020 for various reasons, obviously COVID, and 2021, which was really bad. Yeah,
put this together, and we're talking about 575,000 winter and summer.
correct,
So
Yeah.
divide that number in two. And so we're actually closing down the promo of how much money is there. I have a report agenda broken out of 275 and one. Okay. Okay, yeah, I'm getting, you know, clearer about this now, and, you know, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's a great idea, and I see your proposed notion, I'm sure, and I know that's, you know, the way we put it in the budget, but I would feel more comfortable if it was even shown in the budget and the motion broke it down between the summer and winter.
okay.
And question, after, and maybe I'm missing, so I think it was in the 2024 draft, after all the payouts to transportation, what do we anticipate the annual budget available for grants to be, the full complete amount? I see there's like 1.1 in here at the end of the year, marketing events for 2023. But what do we anticipate to be the ballpark number we can rely on for
2024.
Yeah, just available capital so that we can understand what is gonna be left over for applications to other things.
I mean, the page 3 of my report, which I'm sorry, I don't know what it is in the packet.
Is that appendix B?
Are you
Yeah,
talking about
appendix B.
what people are going, what money after all of this will have available?
Right, what I'm saying is,
The page you're referring to, yeah, like it gives you that final number.
right, as far as concept, I'm saying 1.1 mil seems to be the number. So what we're saying is half a budget at 575, and when I'm looking at this number, it seems like we have some headroom for application there.
Sorry, that was 2023. It's actually 2024 is the next line item down, so.
Oh, sorry.
I was just appendix B is just in reference to what we spent this year. What we had this year, so Carl has slated 1,284,000. But that's just with like he has a base of 60,000, so we have to subtract essentially 575 from that. That's I know.
Steve, to speak to that, like. The reason why we've come to 575 is because people just asked for more money and we gave it away, and one of those organizations asked for $130,000.
Right.
So 575 is 100% above what we were comfortable with last budget cycle. And
I thought we were talking last.
so a year ago, we said, this is how much money we want to contribute to this, and then we modified the budget, right?
So
Having,
oh, go ahead.
having more money available. And putting it towards just whatever somebody wants to ask for. Whether it's right or wrong goes against that whole challenging the applicant to really come up with something that has legs and can be funded and is fair to. You know, other business owners that don't have that opportunity of saying, well, we just asked for this much money and, you know, we probably get it, even though we can cover it. So to create that cap, just because we have more money, why don't we just save that and put it towards some of those other things? So I'd be even comfortable with a slightly less cap because it's just one organization that threw us over that budgetary item. So.
Yeah. I mean, I would anticipate too, when we look at all the expansions that are going on and potentially there's real estate. I would think we want to have a little extra headroom in there. And I look at it like taxation, like you don't really need to raise taxes, you just need to enforce some of the loopholes we're taking advantage of. And so with this, to me, the number isn't necessarily about the budget, but it's about enforcing and utilizing the rubrics that you, Nick, was working so hard on to sort of create, and I know this is antithetical to my life approach to tightness, but to create some guardrails so that things are just more tightly enforced. And we've gotten to that point recently where we talked about everybody gets the mulligan. So we're already making, I think, small progress in that arena. So that's just where my logic is coming from, because I originally wanted to see 700 on this. So that we have some headroom without having to do them, but if there's something super worthy comes along, it doesn't mandatorily require us to spend what's called 350. It doesn't per cycle, it doesn't require us to spend that, it gives us a little more leeway, gives Marissa the ability to more tightly follow the rubric. There were some things we awarded in this last one, and these are all nuanced in a lot of ways. So we're looking at events that have ones in multiple categories that we are still funding. So perhaps it's more about stronger adjustments to the rubric, stronger enforcement and following of the rubric, and then a budget that gives us headroom to get creative. That's my logic.
I think the way she came about the numbers based on, you know, averaging the last number of years to come up with this 275 and the 300,000. I think they're reasonable numbers based on that, and I wouldn't be comfortable going higher.
I mean, the other,
I'm not comfortable going lower either. I'm comfortable right where they are.
I mean, the other thing, I think we've been able to just communicate a lot more in general and through like different work sessions and things like that. We'd be able to, we could start at this as a baseline. And perhaps if there is that one-off event that we're saying, man, that would have been great, if we can only give them 30 or something, that we'd be able to come back next through a work session and I'd be able to say like, hey, we really wanted to fund this event. Is it worth it to bring it up to 600,000 or something like that? Like if we're at a point where we find like we are turning away something really great, or can we just make some small adjustments and say, we want to give you the 20,000, but instead we're going to give you 17, and doing that across the board creates another bucket of 30,000 for somebody else coming in. So I wouldn't mind just trying it to see where we're at. We do have the funds, so to know, it's like we do have those additional funds. If you as town council are like, we really want to fund this event, you know, the funds are there, right? So, but I think just having that in the back of our head and like really trying to get tighter there, then I, as a staff member too, can get tighter and I can say, like I did with the chamber this last time around, like, hey, this is a good event. I don't think it's worth $2,000 marketing. I think maybe it's 500. And maybe just having more of those conversations, we can get to different amounts for that.
This is a good problem to have, right? I really like the graduated approach because we've accomplished maybe holding people's feet to the fire a little bit. And since we do have the money if there's a out of left field marquee thing that somebody comes with a well polished idea and they want $200,000 and talk to her directly, like that's a special session that we can take on. I'm more just trying to avoid 50 or 100,000 just because we have the money and then the floodgates open and it's just sort of whatever anybody asked for. And it's like, yeah, sure, we've got the money in there, why not? And so I think we're sort of in the same lanes, and just maybe approaching it slightly different. So I think we have shared goals there.
I think it's important that we split the amount apart because, I wouldn't want to do the summer grants and go up to 500,000 and leave ourselves with, only 75,000 to do the winter ones. It was kind of what we ended up doing this last year in general, so I think it's important to split those amounts apart as we do this motion.
Were we gonna give direction but wait for input here, or?
I think this has been on the agenda before and I have big ideas.
Would one of them coming in with a compelling argument for raising the budget have an impact on anybody's vote?
You know, in terms of the amount, I think staff is advised the amount that they think is necessary and that should be.
Yeah, then I'm comfortable voting because there's 4 votes here right now, so they don't change. I think I meant guesses.
Move to approve a emission tax budget of $275,000 for the 2024 summer emission tax grant funding cycle and $300,000 for the winter 2024-25 emission tax grant cycle.
Is there any other discussion? Leah?
Roman,
Yes.
Dwayne,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Adam,
Yes.
Dan.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. So did you want me to try and do a work session with percentages or anything like that, or?
We made up your mind. Yeah. But Nicholas and Carlos and I work on
Okay.
that idea.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Next is the agreement for demolition between Bywater Development LLC and the County Backers Review. Yeah.
I think oh, Jeff, go ahead. I can give a short little intro.
Thank you,
Jerry.
We'll let Jerry take the lead.
Okay.
All right, y'all can hear me all right?
Hi,
Okay.
Jerry.
Terrific. Hello, good to see you. Sorry I can't be there, but next time. As council knows, Bywater Development has been chosen to do the redevelopment of the Homestead property, but of course, and we're doing the main contract for them now. I'm working on a term sheet that we'll work with Bywater on. They've provided some materials to me. We've got the RFP, et cetera. And so that contract will come to you when staff is really comfortable with it. But meanwhile, as the council knows, we need to get the buildings demolished before winter. They're kind of an ongoing, safety concern. And it's only going to get worse. And it's in Bywater's interest to have those buildings taken down. And so the concept is that we do a little demolition contract, which is what this is. And what this contract does is really hires Bywater to do that. And Bywater will hire a subcontractor to go out and get these buildings taken down. So that the town does not have to be hiring that contractor. Makes sense for Bywater to have the demolition contractor as a sub to them, who will effectively prepare this site for them or help to start preparing the site that Bywater is going to have to build on. So that's what this contract does. It also obliges Bywater to obtain bids from subcontractors. So we want to know how much that is and obtain 3 bids. It empowers the town through the town manager to pick the bid. So we pick the bid of the 3, but then Bywater contracts with that sub. So it's important for the town to have a little financial control to look at the bids and pick one, but then we're not hiring the sub to do the demo. Bywater will do that. So that's basically the contract, but of course then we have to pay Bywater to not only pick the sub, but to supervise the sub. And the contract here provides that the town will pay Bywater whatever it is that the subcontract requires, the actual demo subcontract, along with an amount that represents the cost of Bywater to do all this, to manage this and basically be the general contractor for that demolition activity. And we don't have all the bids in yet. And so what we would like to do, as you'll notice, there's a blank in paragraph 4 of the contract, rather short contract, which I wrote in front of you, for how much does Bywater get paid? Clearly, they get paid whatever, the chosen bid amount is for the sub. But of course, you have to put on top of that what was their cost to actually do all this work. We don't have those bids in yet. It's our suggestion, if you'll allow us, this is probably the smallest part of the larger homestead package. But it's our suggestion, if you'll allow us, to approve the contract and authorize the negotiation of the Bywater's compensation for doing this, layered on top of what we're going to have to pay for the sub, to be left up to a negotiation by Carlos and myself. Now I know Joel is here from Bywater. He's probably in the room, is he? There he is, he's waving his arm, and he might be able to tell you a little bit more. I know we're not quite ready, I think, to share on bids, but he can probably respond a little bit as to what he conceives his role of, or if I've described it any differently than what he anticipates. But he has seen this contract. He and I worked through this last week and came to this form. So we should be good on the contract with just this one blank that we're asking you to let us fill in once we've figured it out on the bids, etc. Shall we hear from Joel, and then we can take any questions?
I'll give you a question that you can answer as you're talking.
Absolutely.
Is there like a not to exceed number that we could put in that blank?
At your leisure, yeah, whatever y'all think. The principal reason it's blank is a timing issue. And Jerry did a great job of explaining how we derived where we got to the contract. Carlos was out of town last week. We've got snow coming. We have a council meeting now. We need to do it the first couple of weeks in November. We want to get the principal action set. We asked for all of our bids. We solicited 5 groups. I got one on Sunday, one on Monday, one today. I've got one of the other 2 is going to submit a bid. I don't have it yet. So we're wanting to look at all those holistically and see what the scope is, see what the pricing comes back to, and how that relates back to it. So I think if it would have been another couple of weeks, and if it was May and not October, or Carlos, wouldn't have been fought right, ifs, names, and pots and pans, but it's just a timing situation. The bids are, I've not reviewed them, I've just received them, so I don't have a perspective of where they're gonna fall. We had one estimate early on that was a holistic estimate, so that's kind of a basis of comparison. We only got one of those. What is that date on that? I'm sorry.
What is holistic estimate?
That was, we've broken up into 2 phases, right? So we're gonna do the vertical from the mud seal up, and then clean the fences and remove the windows. That's what we're gonna do this fall. And then we're gonna do the concrete next spring. That estimate that we received had all of that in one phase, sorry.
For the 3 buildings.
And it was just 3 buildings, not 6 structures. So it was a partial estimate. We can maybe derive a little bit of information from that, but not a lot. So
I'm less concerned with half amount, only because if I heard Jerry right, staff's gonna be involved in the selection.
It is our selection.
Correct, so I have faith in you guys to fiscally responsibly approach that, and so, to me, that's less of a concern. I think it's gonna hurt either way. Oh, yeah.
I think so, yeah.
So,
How long will phase 1 take?
Yeah, so we have our scope defined it's very tight. They have 12 working days to take it from where it is now to the safety fencing around it with signage. And that's realistic, maybe a little bit aggressive, but very, very good. So it's 2 weeks and 2 days, of working time. And our plan is for that to happen after the first week or the first of November. So 2nd, 3rd, 4th, whatever demo guy the town selects, and how that fits into their schedule, but we want to start the first week.
My goal is to have it done by the 20th. So if they start the 4th and 5th, that gives them 12 working days, and they're done by before Thanksgiving. Everybody can put it to bed for the winter. We can go on about doing the greater things like what we're doing Thursday night. Get this bigger contract settled and start working through prospects, HOA, working through the plan of this. This was it was a pretty easy collaboration. We had Jerry, we have one or two, I think we had one phone call and about, 10 days worth of emails. So it came together pretty quick. A lot of that was gonna overlap into the master contract.
And Jeff was the primary staff lead on it while I was away.
They stole your thunder.
He does all of our,
Okay.
all of our contracts, so he's best suited.
And what this does is it removes the onus from town to have to administer this, right? Like, y'all are obviously very busy and have a lot of things to do. It puts that burden on us, and we'll get it taken care of. We're the ones that have to do it.
Jerry, is Janet the one to be signing this because she's here in the meeting tonight?
Yes.
Yes, yeah,
Okay, I didn't want it to create a delay or anything.
yeah, that's why it's set up that way, yep.
Motion. Jerry, I know you have a motion here, correct me if I need any amendments to it.
Okay,
I move to approve the agreement for demolition between Bywater Development LLC and the town of Mount Crested Butte to compensate Bywater Development for the demolition of homesteads.
if you'd add to that motion, the one suggestion I would be, because we've got a blank for the compensation. Add the phrase authorize the town manager and town attorney to negotiate the compensation in paragraph 4.
I'll amend my motion to allow town staff to negotiate and authorize the final price for demolition costs.
That's good.
And additionally, I will amend that to have our mayor pro tem in attendance sign the contract.
Terrific, yeah.
Any other discussion?
I would just request to be hyper communicative with everyone living there. People are already pissed for good reasons, and let them know what's up, timelines. Everything,
Certainly, so we'll spot that for sure.
Anything else? Yeah.
Dwayne,
Yes.
Roman,
Yes.
Steve,
Yep.
Alec,
Yes.
Jan.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joel.
Thanks, Cal. Appreciate it. I'm sure I'll see you again.
See you later.
Have a great evening.
Next is ordinance number 8, series 2023, and ordinance of the town council of the town of Mount Pleasant Butte, Colorado, amending sections 11.3, 11.6, and 11.7 of the code of the town of Mount Pleasant Butte concerning short-term rental regulations, second reading.
I think I'm also the staff report on this, not to steal anybody's thunder, but Tiffany's out. Unless Leah, you want to do it? No? You can't.
There are no changes.
Tiffany's done a really good job of describing this. You've seen this on first reading already. This tightens up the STR ordinance or licensing process. You learn by doing. And I think I promised you on first reading, you'll never be done amending, this ordinance. And because over time, there'll be little things that will come up and you'll want to kind of fine tune the process a little bit. But this, I think, addresses a number of things that have come up just recently, and I won't repeat them because they're in the staff report, and you really heard a much better description, I think, from Tiffany last time. As I looked at it, and often when you get away from a thing for 2 weeks and you look back at it, you go, gee, it could be slightly improved. And while I don't often like to pull out can you do a second reading ordinance amendment, you have the right to do that, as I've many times advised you, and the state legislature does it all the time. It's rare that they don't. But I've been giving a little thought to, it's on page 142 of the packet, so it'd be the second page of the ordinance, if you'll indulge me. It's not something I've got to have, but I think it would improve it. The top paragraph, that's all about what happens when there's a sale, right? And when there's a sale, we have added language saying the previous license goes away after 60 days. So that you don't have this awkward overlap, right? But meanwhile, the new owner is applying, and it occurred to me, the new owner, let's say the new owner gets right on it, applies, and is issued a license at day 45. Well, technically, the old owner's license, at least if you read this, doesn't expire till day 60. So there's 15 days during which the old owner's license is still active and the new owner's license is active. And it occurred to me that while in practice, the old owner will probably relinquish, or we could issue the new license to be effective only at 60 days. Why make the new owner wait necessarily, right? So to avoid that, the real easy fix is to add just a little phrase at the end of that paragraph where it talks about the previous owner's license automatically terminating at the expiration of the 60-day period. That the classic fix is to add, or upon issuance of a license to the new owner, whichever occurs first. Then you don't have an overlap. And
Ordinance number 8, series 2023, an ordinance of the town council of the town of Mount Crested Butte, Colorado, amending sections 11-3, 11-6, and 11-7 of the code of the town of Mount Crested Butte concerning short-term rental regulations, reading 2 with the following suggested addition, and I like it. At the end of number 1, after the words 60 days, add or
upon issuance of a license to the
a new short-term rental license to the new owner, whichever comes first.
perfect.
Second. No. Is there any discussion on this?
Trying to make up for last meeting and rest.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, no discussion? Leah?
Steve.
Yes.
Alex.
Yes.
Dwayne.
Yes.
Roman.
Yes.
Jan.
Yeah. Next thing is the November 23rd, 2023 town council meeting. Christine's not here, I'll comment that, if we look at the upcoming agenda items that Tiffany puts out, other than showing of Carlos being there for the meeting, the only other thing is attendance at the next town council meeting. There's nothing else listed in the agenda, suggested agenda, and I did check with Carl. That he thinks he can have the budget adjustments that we talked about today ready for us for the November 6th meeting. And so, we wouldn't need to be worrying about that on the 21st. So
Tiffany, if I may, her and I talked about this item a little bit, and she said if we do cancel that meeting, that the 7th of November and the 6th of December will be potentially longer meetings. So that's her.
they can be longer.
And one other potential, thing to take into account for that meeting would be the homestead contract. That would be the.
I'm fine keeping the meeting. I mean, if it needs spreading out some stuff from the other ones, we've been having some long meetings, 2-hour work sessions with, all that kind of stuff, so. I'm in town. Yeah. I won't be here, but.
I'll be here, and I think they're supposed to be here. That's no, I'm like, that's cool. Yeah.
And that is the meeting that I am missing.
Huh?
That is the meeting that I am missing.
If it could be stacked with just housekeeping things, just to move the other meetings forward, all the stuff like that. So.
Okay. So we will just leave it as is.
But keep it light.
Hmm.
But keep it, as wide as we can.
This is great.
Okay. We're getting close. Okay, I'm gonna push through this. Okay, next is the reports, discussion items and announcements and purchase town manager's report.
Well, it was an abbreviated report as I was out last week. I just returned this afternoon, so I've been here for just a few hours. Probably some things I should update you on, but they're not springing to mind right now. It's only one thing I'd like to add is a thanks to both the counselors that were able to make it and the staff members that were able to make it a couple of Fridays ago, while Jerry and the rest of the firm was here. It was just fun to get together with them. I wanted to personally thank them on the record for taking care of us that evening. It was a good time.
Sorry's out of town, Jerry.
Yeah, we'll make it up another time. Glad those of you that could come showed up, and we'll do it again.
Sorry, I didn't see, I just did the drinks part, you skipped that part.
I did have an inquiry about the Snodgrass item.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, I can offer some context on that and, this, I'm thinking if this is in front of you, I think your council discussion. So this came up as part of the Riders Off the Road presentation, that Simba was, working with STORE to approve. And the whole concept of it was to have small changes to existing trails to get people off the road. For example, when you go out, Brush Creek, you come off Upper, and you go on the road until you get to the parking lot at, Brush Creek. So like, you know, 1/8 of a mile or whatever it is, like 1/10 of a mile, this and that. So lots of little chunks. And then there were a couple things in there that were more heavy-handed, one of which is this Snodgrass Trail, which would keep it open all year. But also, there were some other issues that were brought up at the STORE committee meeting. The DOW was in favor of it. And because the Forest Service was encouraging consensus amongst the group to really send a strong message of supporting the initiative. They basically said, well, you know, if these other things aren't in here, or are in here, it's gonna hurt the cause. So they were removed. And I don't know if it's gonna be a discussion item for later, but I would encourage, if this is in front of you, this could be a council discussion and not just the letters.
Well, that's why I put it in my report. I didn't want to take it upon myself to do that. So it was, unless I had the guidance from you to do so. So if the consensus is there, is it something that the council would like to consider? Because if not, I won't go to the trouble of drafting the letter, but if you would, I can do that. And then we can present for discussion and consideration. And if you're ambivalent to it, we can.
I would like to hear what people have to say before there's this suggestion of approval in front of everyone, personally.
And by everyone, you mean
Like the council.
just the council?
Yeah, I'd like it to come before the council.
But you would like something to come.
I'm saying for us, I'm personally saying for us to have a conversation of what it is before we have something in front of us that says, here's this thing to approve, right? You know, kind of some conversation about it. So I have my own opinions here.
I wouldn't have a problem with this having a draft idea of what you'd like, you know, see the letter presented to us, to give us a starting basis to work with.
From the one paragraph, I'm supportive of it, but I think I'm highly uneducated on those paragraphs, and further to this.
And some context and supporting information, I guess.
And you probably bring a lot to the table on STORE, and I'll have to admit, my level of involvement at this point is not much beyond that, what I mentioned in my report as well. I haven't taken a deep dive. It just came up with some signage things we were talking about with the trail on how signs are misleading, because it says it's closed right at, or used to anyway. right at the trailhead when it is peaking, it doesn't really close, you can do it much further. So it kind of stemmed out of that conversation. And that conversation was that 2 weeks ago, right, before I added that into my manager's report, so. I don't want to make it sound like I have a whole lot of data behind it either, but maybe. You and I, with your connection to the store, can go over that, or we could bring. Would be wise to bring somebody in to comment on it. I think you know where they stand on it though, but. Let's do on this a little bit, because I don't want to put you in an awkward position, or at least considering a letter without maybe all the information that you might want to have.
Generically, I just think that having the entire trail on public lands is the way it should be. So, taking the private property out of it is best from my perspective.
Yeah, aside from the good relationship.
Well, it might not be something right away. I do want to, kind of maybe give the Forest Service and kind of get some of those things you're talking about, pros and cons, or that are named. Something.
This isn't something with a deadline.
No, it is nothing we even have to do. It's not part of any program or anything there. The word is that the more you, if that's the way you feel, the more you get that to the people that matter, maybe the more effective it is, but it's not time 60 on that scale.
There's a lot of other interested groups in this, governmental agencies. Fragmentation of habitat, user groups, so it's not just moving a trail off of private. It's a lot more than that, yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Anything else about Allison's report? Okay, the clerk's report.
Looks great. One thing with that, I'm gonna give it Tiffany pull together just a sort of summary report. Highlighting some stuff in the UI program. And some possible discussion points for changes for next year in the second quarter.
Is this something we discuss at budget time or when this program is over? Because we already did vote for this continuing to be.
Oh, shoot, I thought it was activity first.
Well, like the end of like our fiscal time to talk about this, like if this crops up in April, like we should be talking about this. Kind of at budget time.
Agreed, yeah, so maybe this is something we wanna. Yeah, well, I mean, I'll have.
Bringing it back during the budget discussion.
Well, I'll have it a summary, like next summary at the next meeting, because we'll be at the end of the cycle, but we'll need to, I guess, review that, come up with a budget plan for that, and then add it to the draft.
I will, I am spending time like with you in the states, and I think the way that they organize restrictions, really satisfy all of your concerns without it being kind of like contrived, it's a really straightforward plan.
The state? Yeah, so that's where I got my rebate.
And so they just have the simple, like, I think, they allow for that top tier class, which has been a sticking point for me, because we really want people out of cars, that's what we want to find. And they just have a little bit of language about, no mountain bikes, basically.
I'm all for the program that they just.
Yeah, I think we got a lot of tweets that are in here.
We can get a twister net out.
Did Tiffany give you anything that you wanted to point out? Nope. Any other comments about Tiffany's report? Okay. We already discussed the attendance of the next town council meeting. So we moved down to the department head report, so first one's community development report.
But the next meeting is the November 7th.
Oh, you're right, I'm sorry. I already skipped the meeting, so are people going to be here on? November seventh, oh, that's election day.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we can all cast the ballots and still make it, I'm very confident in this group.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, I mean, kind of a long stop.
Although I do support it, don't know holidays and all.
I agree.
Yeah.
Unless you're in the service industry and then you don't get it.
Then you're legitimate.
okay, so looks like we're good.
Okay.
Okay. Community development report, is there any questions or comments for?
I just have
regarding that?
a quick question, and very well may not be able to answer this, but with some of these larger projects that we've talked about and, you know, gone back and forth with negotiations. I won't call it any one in particular, but we have this modification where we want kind of this little last thing. What's the big hangup with this huge time delay with, oh, we're gonna give you this thing that you asked for to make this thing move forward?
Are you talking about PUDs, some of the PUD applications?
Yeah.
Well, most of, what we have happening right now with our bigger ones is the ball's really not in our court, it's with.
Right, yeah, I'm
I'm
wondering, like.
And they're, from the town's point of view, the applicants are not giving us what the code requires.
Oh, so it's not about like, hey, we wanted this many units of affordable offset. It's more of like, here's what we want to do. Here's our sort of application, but it's not ready.
As an example, we need a utility plan for their project because we're at final plan. We need that utility plan approved by the water and sanitation district.
So with some of these that are taking a long time, the acceptance is there on their part of that negotiation, but they're just not kind of giving you.
It's not, I think it's more of that than the other.
Oh, thanks.
Anything else on that? It's them, not us.
Yeah, and then some of the things, and they might tell you something differently, if I'm being honest, I would respectfully disagree if they did. But yeah, and, I don't remember what I was gonna say. Oh, and to that, you know, what, I guess, compounds it. For it's not us, it's them, it's not us, it's them, but it also is the third party of the water and sanitation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's not throwing anybody under the bus, it's just saying that's where these things, are. Yeah, well, it's out of, a lot of it is out, on two of them are out of our hands. Because there were, if you recall, on one of them, you had specific conditions that certain things had to be approved and reviewed by the water and sanitation district.
Thanks, everyone. Congrats to the town on an award from the American Planning Association.
Yes.
That is fantastic, super
Did you
cool.
put that in your report?
That's in.
Okay.
Raucous party.
Yeah, for the transportation,
We gotta celebrate. That was
Yeah.
Blaine.
yes.
Goes day after
Thank
this,
you for doing
just celebrate that award.
Hurry up.
Okay.
Go to your, no, we're still not. I can't do that yet. Come on, we got.
Throwing your voice back.
I think that covered well by the work session, so we move on to the parks report, any questions? Comments?
How much snow?
I don't think I can read it, but. Okay, anything on the police report?
Found two custodial arrests seems really, really low for a region outside, an area outside. It was impressive. I feel very safe.
We didn't have a maintenance report, a marketing and events report.
No questions.
No questions, no
I
comments?
have one thing to add really quick. I'm gonna be at the Thursday Design Shred at 5 o'clock for Homestead. I'll have a one-page report that I'll bring on November 7th if some of you aren't gonna attend.
Unfortunately, we'll be out of town, but what I've been trying to get folks to do is folks with the other like bills that are out town, Paradise Park or any of those things. Come and say like, here's what we didn't like in the end with our thing, like this kind of thing is too small or weird. And having that kind of feedback.
Could we do that outreach to some of the Bywater units in Paradise?
It's open house, anybody's welcome.
I mean, but could we do the outreach to them, knowing that they have specific experience with it?
I'm gonna get this need the cave.
I mean, could we?
Yes,
And I'm not supposed to do it, I'm not trying to come out that way, it's just trying to track them down and get. When we've got the flyer, well, it sounds like that's happening organically anyway.
Sort of, certainly. You only talk to a couple of people.
Yeah,
I was just throwing out the grant and the fire things.
and again, I'm not opposed to that, it's a matter of. Tracking. Not a simple, oh, I have their email address.
Maybe that's like once there's an actual like idea.
Yeah, once we start talking about them, she's.
Well, I mean, stuff that you were just talking about are things we'd like to find out. At the meeting on Thursday, if something did not work. Let's know that, so we don't make that mistake. You wanna call it a mistake, I don't wanna call it a mistake. Yeah, so you could, yeah.
Council reports. I can also be a general.
It's so big, I'm gonna pick for the next meeting, it's a verbal report, but I feel better having it right.
Okay,
Let's go ahead.
Yeah.
Second Roman.
all right. That's a direct.
It's not bad. For our meeting.
Thanks, Jerry.
You bet. Thank you. Good to see you all.